What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Rideshare Hub. My name's Greg. What I'm doing for you guys today is I think Uber and Lyft might be ending in 2020. There's been some really crazy changes coming up lately. So I'm going to run you guys through some of these changes, see what you guys think. If anything, just be crazy aware of all of this. But before we get going, I just wanted to tell you guys real quick about Play Octopus. Play Octopus is a really great service. Basically, this company designed a tablet that has games on it. They send you this tablet for free, and when you're in the middle of the ride, you can then pass that tablet back for people to play the games on. I've even seen some drivers where they will like mount it on the back of the headrest, and that way no one can steal it. But also, it's just it's locked in place. It's easy to play. And what's cool about this is then there's ads during the experience while they're playing. And the more ads that people watch, if they're playing it consistently, you're actually making money from that. So it's kind of, I feel like it's a no-brainer because I sometimes struggle with if someone gets in my car and I can't tell if they're social or not, or maybe it's more obvious that they're leaning towards not really being a talkative person. It's kind of nice to be able to be like, it's just like a relevant thing to say. Be like, hey, I don't know if this interests you, but I do have this service, and it's this tablet-based game system. If you want to check it out, I'm pass it back to you. You can check it out. And I like that a lot because sometimes when I can't figure out if people want to talk or not, that's a good thing where it's like, hey, I'm just trying to give you good service. I'm not trying to just be cheesy and talk your ears out. I'm trying to give you good service, And I think if you're more of on the introverted side, this is definitely something you want to look into because I would just offer it to everybody. For one, just to make more money. But for two, it's like, then they're occupied. You get to be up here and everybody's quiet. Everybody's happy, So links in the description. I really think you guys should check this out. If you're really serious about driving, it's free. You don't have to pay to get it. Like they send it to you for free, So like I said, link in the description. But let's get going on this video. So I was actually really floored by a lot of those things. I had done a few videos in the past for you guys about like I thought Lyft was maybe ending because I talked about not only just the rate reductions, I talked about that independent study that was done tracking the riders' earnings, and what they uncovered was that Lyft was taking 35% of our earnings and Uber was taking 30%. And I thought that was bad, and it is. Granted, but some of the things I found out literally in the last 2 days, I think are like a million times scarier. I really do. And basically okay, if I had to sum it up, I'll go into more detail, but if I had to sum it up, basically here's kind of the gist of what's going on. A lot of states are saying that, hey, if you are going to have all these people out here creating all this freaking traffic, the least you can do is treat them as employees. You're clogging up our city, and that actually is a fact. They've proven that congestion in cities due to Uber and Lyft has increased kind of ridiculously because of Uber and Lyft. Why is that? Well, think about a lot of people don't do this full time to where they can just go drive whenever they want. A lot of people, because of their kids, their other jobs, their family, whatever else is going on, they can only drive for maybe a 4-hour window every other day, 1 day a week, whatever it is. My point being that a lot of times what happens is a lot of these people aren't going to be able to all be out during busy times. So then they're out during slow times. And what happens is then you've got 40 freaking Uber cars in one area. I mean, and probably way more than that. And it creates more traffic. It really does. So there's a few things that are happening. A lot of the states are trying to crack down on the times that we would actually be allowed to drive. And they're saying, essentially, we're not even going to let you guys get out there during certain times because it's just creating too many problems. So that's one thing they're doing. Then what I was saying earlier. And then on top of it, they want Uber and Lyft to treat us as employees. Sounds great. I would love to get treated as an employee. I would love to have a lot of guarantees, benefits. There's a lot of great things that would come from that. Here's the problem is neither Uber or Lyft has the resources to do that. They just don't. If you've been keeping up with my videos over the past few months, I did a video on how both companies like haven't profited yet. And it's crazy because, I mean, they're huge. Everybody knows what Uber is. Like, everybody. It's like, it's becoming a name like YouTube almost, you know? It's just like, it's big. Everybody knows what an Uber is. There's probably just these select, like, you know, real boondocks towns that maybe haven't heard of it. But, like, you've got to, like, have no social media and live in the freaking woods to not know what Uber and Lyft are. So the exposure from it is massive. They still just haven't profited. They haven't been able to make it work. I don't know too much about why, but I've heard that a lot of it is because they did some really, really dumb advertisements. A lot of those bonuses, I think, killed them, you know, and they were paying people out like $1,500 to do like 200 rides when they first started. Like, they're like, that's going to hurt you, you know, no matter what. And I think like for Lyft, I think the mentoring program really killed them. For those of you that don't know what the mentoring program is, if you're not a Lyft vet like some of us, the mentor program was essentially when you signed up, it was kind of like when you would go to get your driver's license and the driving instructor would come out, he would check your wipers, your lights, basically just make sure you had a functioning car. This was the same thing. So they would come, inspect your car real quick, and a mentor was someone who had been like five-star driver for like 1,000 rides or something, and then you could be a mentor. They got rid of the program right when I gave like my 1,000th ride, and I was so ticked because I talked to some people that made crazy money from that mentorship program. Anyways, and then they would ride in the car with you and make sure you were like a relatively decent driver. It was a real quick thing. It took maybe a half hour to an hour at most. But then these mentors were getting paid like good money to do this for people. So I think both companies did a lot of really stupid advertisements early on, a lot of dumb incentives that really just ended up biting them in the butt. And Uber's gotten sued like 500,000 times already, so that probably doesn't help either. That being said, both companies are like in the negative. So these states want them to treat us as employees. And again, sounds great on paper, but the problem is that that would increase their costs by upwards of 30%, 20 to 30%. So if they're increasing that much, that's even more money that they already don't have. I have believed for this last year that these companies, and I really believe that like secretly they're fighting hardcore to go full automation, because I think that is the only thing that can save them. I think that's the only thing that would happen that would allow them to truly be a profitable company, is going full automation. Because they last quarter net earnings, okay, I always get this confused. Net and gross, which one's before expenses? I can't remember. Whichever one is like all your money before you've paid everyone out. So they had 12.1 billion, I believe is what they made. They paid 8.4 of that to drivers. Now, they'll have to make an initial mega investment to buy a fleet of automated cars, but once that goes on, I mean, here's the thing I keep telling people is like these cars, they wouldn't need to be serviced as much, because you got to imagine if it's a robot driving it, that sucker's probably never even going to go over like 2 RPMs. That's going to like add a lot of engine life to the car. They're going to be driving crazy safe. I mean, it's a robot. It's perfect. It's not going to be speeding. It's going to be doing the perfect stops to conserve its brakes. Like, you know, eventually, yeah, they'll have to keep replacing these cars, but the cost is still going to be way less than paying out all of us drivers. I have a theory that I think they're actually going to push really hard for this year, because of how much the states are starting to crack down on some of these regulations for Uber and Lyft. I just think it's going to create really, really bad problems. So some of the other things that have been happening. So basically what they're calling it is gig industry limitations. And what it's essentially going to do, it's going to threaten our flexibility. It's going to threaten when we can work. Two of the things I read about that they want to do is they want to in certain really nice and really busy areas, you wouldn't be allowed to stay in the area unless you had a passenger in your car 65% of the time, is I believe what the stat would be. And guys, I want you to do your own research on this, because I'm going to fudge a lot of this. I'm trying to give you guys the gist of what's going on so that you get interested in looking into it yourself, because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And so they want to limit like when you could be in certain areas unless you had someone in your car. And what they really are trying to crack down on the most is just having empty cars cruising around. And we've all done this. Like a lot of times when I'm driving, I'll open up my Uber passenger app and see how many drivers in the area. And a lot of times there's like 10 of us just in like one small little area. And like, I always think about like, there's this area here in Scottsdale. I'm in Arizona, and there's this strip of bars on like 2 streets. And the traffic on those 2 streets is horrendous at the wrong times. And 75% of the cars are Uber and Lyft. And then there's even a few taxis in there. And it's like, I mean, it's probably like the occasional parent who came to pick up their drunk teenager that wasn't supposed to sneak out and use their fake ID. Like, and other than that, every car is a Uber or Lyft car. So it's like, where I'm at is I kind of see both sides. I understand the problem that Uber and Lyft has caused. Like, that really has caused a problem. I obviously don't want it to end, but I think what's going to happen is Uber and Lyft are going to get their hands tied behind their backs, because if the states start passing these laws, it's going to really kill Lyft the most, because Uber has a way bigger customer base. So if they're limiting the times that certain people can be in the areas, well, what's going to happen is there's already less Lyft drivers in the area. If they boot out even more, there's not going to be a lot of Lyft drivers in given areas. It's going to be predominantly dominated by Uber drivers. And so eventually, what do people do when they can't hail Lyft? Oh, I guess I'll use Uber. So there's a lot of passengers, and you guys know this. You've talked to people who've told you this. I know you have, because I've talked to like 50. There's so many people that will not use Uber. They are like so set on Lyft because they have some hatred towards Uber, you know? And whatever, to each his own, but at the end of the day, if you can't get a ride, you're going to use it. And so what I think is going to happen is I think Lyft will phase out first. I think that they'll kind of fizzle out and Uber will dominate even more for a little bit, but then I think it's still going to be the same problem, is they're going to be limited to the areas they're at. The other thing they might be limiting is the hours you could work in certain areas. And so if you've done too many hours in an area, like let's say you dropped off a ride in an area you were already like spent your time in, the app wouldn't even let you you wouldn't even be able to go online. You'd have to leave the area to go online, and that would suck. Like, that would drive me crazy, because for me, I pick up a ride, I drop them off, I wait in that area. Like, I will not, and I've talked about this in so many videos, I don't drive around looking for rides. I wait, because you usually get one. And so there's going to be just some really, really bad problems. So some things that have already happened here in Phoenix, I just got this email last week, like literally 3-4 days ago. We are not allowed to do airport rides anymore. They wanted to charge an additional $4 service fee to every passenger, and Uber and Lyft said, no, we can't do that. The airport wanted to do that. And so no more airport rides. And so what I feel like's happening is all these little freedoms, and what we're left with is we'll eventually have this app where like you can turn it on, you can only be in certain areas. If you don't have a passenger, you're gonna get kicked out. And I think it's eventually just gonna get so freaking frustrating that no one will want to do it. At least I wouldn't. So here's what I think might happen. I think that 2 things might happen. I think the most likely one is they're going to push crazy hard to find some mega investor to go automation. That's like my first theory. If they're not ready for that, I think what might happen with Uber and Lyft is that the rates drop, because if they come to the point where they have to treat us as employees, I think what they might do is they might make us just permanently minimum wage. And you could only make $11 to $13 an hour max. Anything extra they would take, and then tips are yours, but nothing else is. And that's very speculation. I have no facts for why I think that might happen. I'm just trying to guess what direction they might go because of some of these things. So That being said, guys, look into this yourself. Do your own research. The easiest way to do that is just Google major changes coming to Uber and Lyft in 2020, and that'll come up with everything that you would want. But that being said, guys, stay safe out there. Have fun driving this week. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. And yeah, I will talk to you guys soon.